Hello. This is the first major debate that I'm going to be covering on my channel. It's going to be the debate on whether or not the Dragon Ball universe is four galaxies or not. I would have started with the Kid Buu and Buon video, to be honest, but this dumbass pussy named Comic Creator decided to make a bunch of dumbass videos, and despite me trying to give some constructive criticism of them, he just keeps deleting my comments like a pussy. I don't even attack him or anything. I just say my thoughts. We have a short chat, and like one response in, and he's like, "Okay, I'm done talking to this guy." Um, I was also on his Discord server. Banned me from that. Banned everyone who's even associated with the people who disagree with him. Generally, he's just a big pussy. So yeah, I'll just decide to churn this out now. Simply put, it's the four galaxies in Dragon Ball debate from Lucas0557. Now, are there only four galaxies in Dragon Ball, or are there way more? Well, short answer, fuck yes, there's like way fucking more than four galaxies in Dragon Ball. That should be pretty obvious. Now, let's first address the main source of the disbelief. Now, these two scans that you see here basically come from the same source, the daizenshuu, but they're each like fan websites that give visuals or text depicting their translations of it. For example, you see on the left here, this East Galaxy, North Galaxy thing at the bottom, that's fan made, doesn't actually come from the daizenshuu. The picture above, where it shows like the universe in full, um, like the world beyond, the living world, the Kaishin realm, all that. Yeah, that's real. But the little arrows with the random ass spheres, it's all fan made. Now the reason why, obviously you see North Galaxy, East, West, South Galaxy, and then you see on the right it says um there's a ruling kami for each galaxy, right? It seems to imply that they're just singular four galaxies for each cardinal direction, totaling four, right? So if there's one galaxy, since it's written singular, for each of the four cardinal directions, obviously there would just be four galaxies. However, let's get into why this just doesn't work. Now, I'm not going to touch on this too long, but the main problem with these translations is that Japanese itself doesn't actually have plural. Again, I'm not going to touch on this too long because this is just something you can easily search up or ask someone about, but these little not fucking diagrams, but these little scriptures here, whatever you want to call them, these pictures that I got from online sources that delve into this topic, kind of just explain, like, even this one on the right, there's no gender, no plurals, and no spaces. Like, the point of this is that in terms of how something is written, it's written the same way. And I'll just go to the next slide. Okay, I'll go to the former slide in a minute. But in this slide, as you can see on DBell, right, which is one of the best translation websites out there, galaxies, plural, and galaxy, among other plural words, if you want to try, look at yourself, you can just try, type them in English and see how they come out in Japanese. They come out the same way because it's written the same way. Put shortly, it's not the way that it's written that tells you if it's plural or singular. Like you'll see in English, right? How you usually add an S to the end of some words, or like in galaxies, fuck, you change it up a bit. It's all context dependent. For example, um, if I say a sentence like, I go, let's say even in English, right? I write the sentence, I went to the orchard, whatever the fuck you call it, and I found a bunch of apple. If I wrote a bunch of apple with fucking E at the end, you wouldn't assume that I found just one apple. You would assume, based on the context of the rest of the sentence, that I meant to say apples, but I either forgot the S or I'm just a grammatical dumbass and I didn't know they had to put S at the end. Basically, context of the sentence tells you whether it's plural or not in Japanese. Like with, for example, gender too. Not the way it's written. So, put shortly, what does this mean? This means that any translation that either gives you plural or singular, for example, the ones above that gave singular, is the translator's interpretation, and it's not actually objective. What would make something more likely or truthful would be the surrounding context or evidence we have to go off which makes more sense, whether they're trying to imply there's a mere four galaxies, or whether or not they're trying to say that each cardinal direction has multiple galaxies. Since if they say North Galaxies, for example, it would imply, more than just one for each direction. Which one makes more sense, whether you look at the daizenshuu itself or the rest of the Dragon Ball, franchise that it is giving information on? To cut to this one, this is Herms talking. Herms is one of the more reliable Japanese professionals and translators in the Dragon Ball space. He's very well known and he has a lot of credibility. You can look him up a bit yourself, but generally the Dragon Ball community does accept him as a very reliable translator if you want to dig into him on his own and decide your own opinion on it. But even here, he says that thanks to the magic of ambiguous Japanese phrasing, this could be arguably translated as North Galaxies rather than a single North Galaxy. That's like he does say, right, the four galaxies, but the problem is you can't really definitively say whether or not it's plural or singular because Japanese is a context-based language in this case, not in terms of how it's written. Now, let's just go into the evidence that clearly points to there being more than one galaxy in each cardinal direction. To start with, let's actually look at the excerpt itself, where Daizenshuu 7 talks about galaxies in general. Within the universe, a local cluster of stars that form into a nebula, a collection of these nebulae form a galaxy. The universe is east, west, north, and south. What the fuck? East, west, north, south, and west. Whatever. Ruled by the four king of worlds, Kaios, actually govern these galaxies. The east, west, north, south, and west galactic divisions, I don't know why west is there twice, but anyways, are for the gods of heavenly realm and the world kings to govern the infinitely numerous galaxies in outer space. Now, you yapped a lot there, but that last sentence is what matters. The infinitely numerous. Now, there's either two interpretations you can take with that. Either A, they're literally saying there are infinite galaxies, or if that's not your cup of tea, that they're just hyperbolically saying that there's a shit ton. But even if you go with the second one, right? Well, the first one would definitely disprove the whole mere four galaxies. But even if you think it's the second one, that's fine because the number four is never fucking used to like refer to an infinite. Like no one in their right mind would look at like fucking four apples and say there's like a countless or an infinite amount of apples here. Usually it'll be something that's too far too great for the normal human mind to count, right? And you even see that they don't say there's an infinite amount of fucking Kais, right? They say there are four Kais. So if there's only one galaxy for each of the Kais, that govern this shit, you would think that they would just say, four galaxies instead of an infinitely numerous. I'd also like to note the fact that they don't actually like say galaxy after they say like the west, north, and south. They just say in general galactic divisions, or they just say the north, south, west, whatever the fuck. They don't even say galaxy. You'd think if being like a galactic division or just an area in general was synonymous with just being a galaxy, because each area or whatever the fuck, each galactic division was apparently only one galaxy. You'd think they would just say galaxy instead of a whole other term, but they don't. And let's go to Chozenshu 4. Now, Chozenshu 4 does actually use the same wording as Daizenshuu because it's basically a reprint. It's basically just a guidebook that came out later on that reaffirms, thankfully, a lot of the information from the Daizenshuu itself. And as you can see, it just says the same kind of thing. The four Kaioshin who are in charge of the east, west, north, and south of the universe actually monitor these galaxies. The division of galaxies into east, west, north, and south is a unit used by Kami and Kaio for the heavenly realm for business purposes in order to supervise the infinite number of galaxies. The fucking infinite. That shit's just plainly written. I don't know what else to tell you. But as I said, the same debunks, even with the fact that the division of galaxies are they're just saying like they make it obvious it's not just one galaxy for every universe. But if that wasn't enough at the end, they literally just said there are an infinite number of galaxies, which doesn't matter whether you take it as hyperbolic or not. Just proves the point either way. Rather trivial. Um, yeah, I mean, Herms also just translates the same thing. That's what this slide is for. So if you take Herms as reliable too, even though I just kind of deciphered the kanji and put it into DeepL and Google Translate and other sources to get the translations that you just saw. If you don't get that, right, You at least have Herms, or if you don't agree with that, you at least have Herms saying, the same fucking thing, that there are infinite galaxies. And he acknowledges how daizenshuu and daizenshuu, as I told you earlier, have the same wording because it's basically a reprint. Now, this is into the area thing I was telling you earlier. Both the daizenshuu and even the manga do use the terminology for area to refer to like the north, south, east, and west divisions of the universe. Which again just seems very weird that they would use this new term or this different term if each area was synonymous with just each galaxy because each area was only composed of the galaxy rather than like a million galaxies or whatever the hell. Which is again just more evidence that when they refer to galaxy, they're not just referring to one singular item. Otherwise, the galaxy would be synonymous with the area. And it would be less, logical to be redundant and to give like multiple terms for the same fucking thing. Like, why would daizenshuu even go out of their way to make this whole new page here for an area, right? If they already touched on the galaxies prior. The next one comes from Jocko in Dragon Ball Super. Both in the anime and the manga, he just fuck. He just outright says there's a countless number of galaxies, just like the Milky Way. Like even ignoring the Milky Way, which is its own galaxy, which by these people's logic, the Milky Way would be the North Galaxy, even though it's never called that by anyone else. Like the North Galaxy. Uh, yeah, he just says there's many, many more than that. Clearly not three fucking others, because nobody, even in the Dragon Ball universe, ever refers to a quantity as small as like four with the term countless, because nobody in real life does that either. That'd be illogical. Now, for all you GT lovers too, even in the other fucking timeline of Dragon Ball, the narrator outright says that Goku and Pan are heading off to boundless galaxies. Now, obviously, this doesn't even include their own galaxy, because they wouldn't be heading off to a galaxy they're already in. So there are boundless other galaxies, my bad, besides the one of their own. Which the term boundless just refers again to basically a countless or infinite number, an endless number, whatever you want to say. So even if you think this is not literal, as in the universe is not like infinitely sized, that's fine. Because again, nobody uses this term to refer to a mere four or three other galaxies. Yeah, so the narrator GT just outright confirms it. Jaco confirms in Dragon Ball Super. In Dragon Ball Super, there's more evidence with this over here too. This is from the Universe 6 tournament arc. Now, in both the anime and the manga, yeah, the Kai just outright says, the Kai for Universe 6 says that Vegeta is from Galactic System 66,950. Now, to any normal sane person, this would just be him saying that they're bare minimum 66,000, whatever the hell, galaxies, which is obviously a lot more than four. Um, but if you're comic creators, bitch ass, you think that they're just designating each galaxy with a random number for no reason, even though conventionally no one does that. Even in Dragon Ball, for example, with the androids or with the universe numbers and shit like that, it's telling you how many of something there are. They give universes numbers 1 through 12 to show that there are 12 universes in total. Same thing with the 7 Dragon Balls. And same thing with the androids, even. In fact, the androids, it's even in terms of the order of creation. There are 20 androids from Android 1 to Dr. Gero, who's Android 20. Um, Not because, Toriyama just wanted to randomly give them any fucking number. They gave them that number because that's the order of which they were created, and that's how many in total there are. There aren't like, I mean, obviously Cell exists, right? But he's a different type of android, and he wasn't introduced in this, he wasn't given the same numbering system. So he doesn't even count in that whole numbering system bullshit, right? And he came after Gero anyway. So yeah, like that's a really weird interpretation that he had that has no logical bearing even in our world or even how Toriyama would use numbering in Dragon Ball. So again, just really weird. But yeah, this just outright confirms that there are at least 66,000 galaxies in Universe 6. And obviously this is Universe 6, but the two universes are parallels of each other, stated by Whis, to the degree that not only do they also share Super Dragon Balls, but even the planets. Universe 6 had an Earth. They obviously have a planet Sadala. They have planet Namek with the Mechians and, Saiyans from Sadala and all that. They even have people like Frieza. So, even in terms of the species and types of planets you find in Universe 6, as well as obviously the Super Dragon Balls, they are very akin to each other. So it would be very weird if one universe had four galaxies and the other had like fucking thousands at least. Tens of thousands at least. That would be genuinely retarded. Don't know. I don't know who would ever think that. Just not what's portrayed in the narrative at all. Enough about that though. Here are just some visuals that also, you know, on the top two, this is when Bulma is talking about defining the center of the universe with the Super Dragon Radar in the Universe 6 arc or the anime. Now in the bottom corner here, in the bottom corner for the top right, you kind of see like what looks like a galaxy. In the full scene, that is their galaxy, that's the Milky Way. So plus that galaxy, I don't know, can you see my cursor? Oh, you can't. Shit. Doesn't matter. The point is, you see that galaxy at the bottom corner, the bottom left corner of oh, what the fuck? Yeah, you see the galaxy, the huge ass galaxy in the bottom right corner of the top right panel there, or fucking picture. And you even see one on the top, the bottom left. So that's two galaxies. And then you see two more like right next to each other on the top right of that. And then you see a couple more in the distance there. Um, and then the one next to it too. But the more obvious visuals as well is the Super Shenron ones. Like Super Shenron, you easily can count more than 10 on each of those. And again, as I said, technically Super Shenron is being like summoned between both universes, but again, if Universe 7 has four galaxies, so too should Universe 6. We should not be seeing like 10 plus galaxies and all of them belong to fucking like it doesn't make sense. But yeah. Now, to go on to my next point, here are just some visual representations of like the difference between a galaxy and a nebula. As you can see, galaxy is more disc-shaped, whereas a nebula is just a kind of unshaped mass of space dust. Like, you see more pictures of like nebula just being like space dust, and the galaxy having this bright light in the middle with this disc shape of space dust around it, or whatever you want to call that. Now, this next one is going to actually be an excerpt from one of Comic Creator's videos, because he actually features a clip that debunks his own point, ironically enough, and I couldn't really sample any clip of this from YouTube, so I decided to use his own video. Um, so yeah, let's just look at this real quick.
For its energy, once you lock onto it.
No, fuck. I'm a dumbass.
For its energy.
Okay, fuck, bro.
For its energy.
Yeah, my bad. It's just gonna be hard to control. Let's just do this. Okay, so the context of this, in case you don't know, is Dragon Ball Super episode where Goku's trying to find Vegeta's key, knowing that he's training on Beerus' planet with Whis. Um, we'll just get into the rest in a moment, but I'll just show you the clip. Oh, can I fucking thank you. Okay, so in case you didn't see that, boom, one galaxy. Okay. Okay. Two galaxies. Okay. Matches what we know about galaxies. Okay, I'm actually about a fucking crash shot.
For its energy.
I gotta keep clicking like this. Some like fucking Google slides. Okay, let's back it up a bit. This, at first glance, and what comic creator tries to say is that this is a nebula. He is wrong. Yes, it does look more like a mass of space dust, but you clearly see a green disk shape in the middle that galaxies share, whereas nebulas do not. Galaxies still have a space dust floating around them, but it contains a bright light in the middle with a overall disk shape. That's a galaxy. Anyways, that's two other galaxies. You see that purple one right there? And let me back it up a bit. The blue one. And then yeah, that's about it. I'll just keep it like this for now. So in total, you saw four galaxies there. He tries to say in this video that there are three, and then the one that I told you with the green disk shape, he thinks it's a nebula, which granted it does look more like a nebula, but than the others at least, but it still looks more like a galaxy than it does a nebula. So I showed you the photos earlier, and I just described to you how it looks more like a galaxy. Um, the main problem with this video, by the way, too, is that he thinks that Goku sensed the entire fucking universe, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. We know Goku, and that's the purpose of this slide, can't actually sense cross-universal distances unless he has a strong ki to lock onto, which he didn't, because Vegeta wasn't flexing his ki loud, large enough for him to even teleport there in the first place. Look here in Dragon Ball Super, too. When he was tricking Gas by instant transmissioning like a shit ton of places, he only ended up getting to Whis' location because Whis obviously has a large ki, even if he's not going full power. Um, and then you see what happens after is that he has to teleport to get back to Monaito, saving Granola, even though it's obviously more ideal for him to just make one instant transmission to get there as soon as possible. He instead has to teleport back like over 5 times to get there because he can't cross the entire fucking universe with just one instant transmission because he can't sense that far. And then the one on the very far left is again like Goku only barely being able to lock on a Krillin's distance from another world because Krillin was able to flex his ki enough. Um, like that's the only reason he sensed it in the first place. There are also other examples like Goku being unable to get the new Namek, for example. The Cell games, help. You had to get help from Kinkai. Like, I don't know why this guy thinks that Goku suddenly is able to sense cross-universal distances without anybody strong flexing their ki. He just can't do that. So, like, even if you wanted to say that one's a nebula and say that we only like can confirm 3 galaxies exist, that clip still wouldn't be a debunk. But I think that just supports my point because my bad, there were actually 4 galaxies, and then he says that fifth one was a nebula that I talked about. Um, but yeah. Now, my last point, really, to close off this video, would just be this. Conventionally, when we're interpreting, like, fictional universes, it would just make the most sense to assume that it follows the same way that ours does, at least in the respects that aren't extrapolated upon. For example, we know the Dragon Ball Earth isn't like ours, even geographically. But we have no reason to believe, unless again you look to the mistranslated daizenshuus, we have no reason to believe that the Dragon Ball universe, in terms of the living realm, is any different geographically. In fact, the living realm itself, like the normal universe, is basically one-to-one besides the fact that there are certain worlds with alien life on them, which even then, worlds with alien life could be possible in our world too. We just don't know it. Same thing with worlds with multiple suns, moons, and higher gravity. That does exist, right? It's just yeah, like we have no reason to believe that. So, like with other things in Dragon Ball, because that's what the author has basis off, our real world, it's most logical to just assume, unless shown or stated otherwise, that it'll be the same. In fact, it seems to be the case, like with many authors, that Toriyama never really, cared to change cosmology details, I guess, unless it's narratively important. For example, on the left is from Dr. Slump. Now, Dr. Slump is more fictionalized than even Dragon Ball. It takes itself less seriously. So you would think between these two series, he would have more incentive to make shit different in Dr. Slump because it's just less logical. However, you notice that the measurements of the Earth, I mean, not the Earth, or is it the Earth? Yeah, I think it is the Earth and Moon. You notice that their measurements are actually the same as they are in real life. You can look these numbers up. 12,700 retamoleks. To put it simply, this is just kilometers. They just reversed the order to make this funny new metric system. But it's clearly a reference to kilometers, as it's literally the word backwards. So if you look up the diameter of the Earth, you will get this same number, kilometers. Same thing with the moon. You'll get 3,000 kilometers for its diameter. In addition, the right is an interview from Toriyama where he just confirmed the fact that the distance from the Earth to the moon is the same as it is in real life, over 300,000 kilometers, 380,000 to be exact. Even though, if anything, this was in response to someone bringing up a question on how, Goku's power pole was able to extend so large. Because if you remember in the first arc of Dragon Ball, he used it to go all the way from the Earth to the Moon to send the Rabbit Gang there. Toriyama just outright uses the real world as a reference. Because again, there's no real plot reason to have there be only four galaxies in Dragon Ball. It's never really made important. There's nothing that you really change about the series if King Kai supervises one galaxy versus like a fucking billion, right? Um, like I guess it just makes his job more impressive, I guess. But that's about it. All right. Um, yeah, like that's about all I got. I think it's pretty clear. Not only should this just be the most logical interpretation, given that's the real world reference authors and we as power scalers or wherever you might be just a casual fan who's looking at the series. Um, but it's also just confirmed in the same daizenshus that they use mistranslations to say that, say there's only four. Same fucking daizenshus, there's an infinite amount, and that's said by characters both in Super and GT, that there's either countless or, 66,000. And it's also just literally shown to us visually. That's about all I got. Comic creator's a bitch. That's why I made this video so early, though I was planning to make it at some point. Um, if you like my way of covering things, even though I'm doing it on some fucking Timu shit with Google Slides, it's fine. Because I got more interesting topics coming up, like Kid Buu versus Buhan. I know that's a pretty popular debate. And yeah, this is me signing off. Thanks for watching.